Today, Matt Gullett joins me in conversation. He's been building Eldritch Wastelands for 10 years. This is a post-apocalyptic Weird South where an arcane catastrophe leveled civilization and psychopathic warlords and voodoo mamas rose from the rubble. Think Gamma World filtered through Thundarr the Barbarian with a weird southern drawl running on Shadowdark. We talk system design, convention play as marketing, and how the hobby helped Matt overcome a childhood stutter. This one's for anybody who wants their apocalypse with a draw. But first, my Kickstarter is live right now. Sanctum of the Whispering God. This is a DCC adventure dripping with cosmic dread. Without further ado, hello, Matt.
Hey, Jeff.
How are you doing this fine day?
Fine and dandy like cotton candy.
Wow, that's a new one.
How are you doing?
I don't know if I'm doing fine and dandy. I don't know. I think I'm now left in a position where I feel I need to come with something that's equally poetic. I'm fine as frog hairs. How about that?
There you go. I love it. Well, I figured since, hopefully we'll get to talk about the weird South that we should put a little bit of the vernacular into it
Y-
there. So I appreciate that fine as frog hair.
Yeah, that's probably about as deep as I can go as far as becoming doing cultural appropriation of the South because I'm not exactly fully familiar with all the sayings and euphemisms and so forth.
Yeah.
So that's a fine looking t-shirt you got.
Well, thank you. The Eldritch Wastelands. That's the redneck warrior fighting a mutant bear. So yeah, we
For,
we get a
for, for
lot of
those that are only having audio.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, no, we've had some banners and some T-shirts made. I have Ken and James working on his interpretation of this image, and I can't wait to see what he does with it.
It looks like a jacked up, and I forgot the guy's name, David Harbour, uh, with full hair and beard, with a beer can that's smoking, smacking down on a bear is what that looks to me.
He's doing a flying scissor kick.
The flying scissor kick. It's a little WWE action going on too, I suppose.
Oh yeah. I love the image. It's very evocative.
So, so yeah, this is going on Kickstarter, right?
I do. It's currently on Kickstarter. It's storming the trenches. I'm really excited about the response. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, there are other there are it seems like there's been a small spate of westerns.
Hmm.
I think there's a couple of guys out of the UK that just did one using the Mutineer Zero engine. Uh,
Hmm.
and then I think there's probably been at least a couple of others. So yours is kind of also starting to uh, add to that space. So it doesn't look like you're trying to go for historical accuracy.
No.
So what are you going for with this?
So, I mean, not to compare it to anything, but it's okay. Let me try to be concise. But so there's some sort of a apocalypse, but not a nuclear apocalypse. It's an arcane apocalypse, and it takes somewhere right about now, in the near future. And it's basically someone builds this super big collider because everyone's got to build the next biggest collider, fires it up, and it rips, a hole in reality, and all sort of weird things stream into our reality and basically ravage the world. And civilization as we know it is no more. And so this is about 100 years in the future where people are trying to claw their way back, and there are fortresses and strongholds that are ruled by psychopathic warlords and voodoo mamas. So it's art. There's a lot of arcane classes. Instead of there's a lot. This place is ravaged by nuclear radiation. Instead, there's like this miasma of dark magic. That kind of similar principle. You don't want to malinger there too long. It starts, instead of killing you with radiation, it begins to transform and mutate. But anyway, yeah, it's so people have made comparisons, kind of like riffs. Some people have definitely seen the Western flair, and it does lean into that a little bit, where kind of duelist, but it might be a duelist with two wands or something. But yeah, yeah. So
So I guess then what would you say would be like your three inspirations for this as far as media goes?
Well, someone made this comment recently, and I have to agree with it. You look at almost any post-apocalyptic game, somewhere in that DNA is Gamma World. And I actually mentioned Jim Ward in the intro, giving him certain thanks because as a kid, we were all playing D&D. Uh, and when I found Gamma World, I fell in love with it. I love all sorts of gaming. I played supers and everything, run the gamut, cyberpunk. But post APOC has always been my jam. And so definitely, Gamma World's in there. Thundarr the Barbarian, love those cartoons as a kid. That's a big inspiration. And you could see some of the influence there. Um, absolutely. So, and then, Westerns, because there's certain Western themes, for
Yeah, I
sure.
think they as a genre they've created certain tropes and certain types of stories that do resonate.
Yeah.
I would imagine even I find it interesting that people in Europe are as enamored with our history in the as far as the Wild West,
Hmm.
as much as they are. Because I think to us it's a bit mundane, but there's a lot of people that enjoy that whole genre besides those of us in the U.S.
Yeah. Even though in the great scheme of things, that really wasn't that long of a period of time, you know.
No.
Um, yeah. But then again, how much do we enjoy, Victorian era, a lot of Americans. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think for us, yeah, I think in general, and as I mentioned before with other people, that I think it's just for us a lot of times. I think because we're things that are familiar, I think we can kind of not see the excitement of sometimes, and sometimes the things that are foreign have like for Knights in Shining Armor. We have our own genre of what we expect as far as medieval period fighting, but people
Mhm.
in Europe, the medieval time, they understand what medieval life was like, and it seems like their RPGs are not about shining armor. It's just like it's the pits.
Rather stark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rather stark. Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
so. Anyway, that's interesting because I think for me, if I think Ruby Spears wasn't that the company that produced Thunder the Barbarian?
You are correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it'd been awesome to get an RPG, get that for an IP to create an RPG for.
Oh, yeah. And there's a number of games that have kind of filed the serial numbers off, but they're fairly close. And I played a few, and they're a lot of fun. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Evil Hat just released, was it Umbar or something like that?
Hmm.
That pay what you want, but no, it'd be nice to be able to do it legitimately. But I'm not sure what it would take. I'm assuming that maybe it must be maybe a complicated license to try and get.
Yeah, would the juice be worth the squeeze? Because we all have a romance for that great old cartoon, but a younger generation, I don't know.
Well, I think ours is the generation that's the kids have moved on, and we've got some money, and we're willing to pay for nostalgia. Where the
Absolutely. Well
where the
said.
younger kids are trying to they're struggling trying to survive and figure out if they can even afford buying a house anymore with the way the economy's going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
so that's some great DNA there. So when did you start working on this?
Well, and so at one point, yeah, just trying to be humble or not exaggerate, but I had said, probably really in earnest the last 10 years. But a buddy of mine he pointed out, he said, no, you've brought tropes and lore and things from, childhood Gamma World games because I started gaming in the early 80s. But just as far as the real nuts and bolts work, about the last year and a half. I originally started working on this to be in Savage Worlds because I like Savage Worlds, the system. But a friend of mine who's the biggest Savage World fan in the world, he said, and he kind of was getting to know me better. Our friendships been over the last few years, and he said, I think you would do better with this in an OSR type system. And I was like, really? And what would you recommend? He goes, Shadowdark. And so and I had been talking to Ramsey and I'd played it. And that's kind of how that came about. But I've been working, trying to make the classes and the ancestries and everything have that flavor. I mean, that's like you could go, another post-apocalyptic system. And I knew that's why I started to make a game. We were talking earlier. Ironically enough, I was working on a game that took a lot of my favorite bits around the time that whole OSR debacle happened and Kelsey put out her game, and I looked at it and I said, "Wow, this game has got a lot of neat bits from a number of games." And I thought, it's been done. I kind of gave up the idea. Um, but in that vein, I wouldn't have made this game except for I feel like it's got a really unique flavor, and it's fun. I ran it at a number of cons here locally, and gotten a really good reaction. And people are like, "Yeah, it's really got its own feel, its own flavor." So,
Yeah, and I think, this the stripped down nature of it keeps it from tripping all over itself. And I think especially for con play, you can run, with the Shadowdark the way it's set up, things can run pretty quickly.
hmm
Because you're not having to make a lot of decisions, especially at upper levels of all the potential ways, things that you can do, and how all your abilities interact with other people's abilities, and yeah,
hmm
where it's more straightforward. And I'm sure it also allows for more bolting on other things that you want to it, because the chassis is pretty clean and pretty sleek.
absolutely well said. Talking about that, I've had to adapt my play style to Shadowdark, which it's a good thing. Like before, some of these systems, a combat or two, and you've taken up the whole play session. And I like to have a little time, some time for story and for some RP. And I've found that we have more time for that because the combats are cinematic and they're good, solid, fun, but they don't take nearly as long to play out. Um, because it's really an elegant system, and I like that. Where before adventures I've ran in a 4-hour con slot, I've converted them to Shadowdark and ran them, and we're done in 3. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, which I think that's a plus. That's a bonus.
So, so you initially thought about doing it in Savage Worlds, which
hmm
already has, I think, in some ways, with riffs and other
hmm
things, it really already has I think, an audience that's kind of already predisposed towards that genre. You also have
hmm
some stuff you could piggyback off of, but I think
hmm
the other problem would be is you're also competing in stuff that, even though yours is different, it's similar. Where I think, when it was Shadow Dark, if there's an advantage where you're doing something different with the engine, I don't want to say with the license because you don't really have the license, but uh,
hmm
you're creating something different in that space, and that may be more beneficial.
No, and that's a factor. I wasn't when I started this. I wasn't even aware that there were other post-apocalyptic systems or setting books or whatever you want to call them, bolt on, that were post APOC until after I was deep into the weeds. And then people would go, "Hey, have you checked out this or have you heard about that?" And I went, "Oh, no." So, I mean, I'm not the first one to do a post APOC even setting for Shadow Dark. But again, I feel like mine is vastly, the flavor and tone is very much different from those other ones. But like it's a bigger field. If I had done Savage Worlds, like you said, there's Rifts, Dead Earth. So there's, gosh, just oodles of setting books for Savage Worlds. Yeah. So it would be a very competitive field. You're correct.
Yeah, and also I don't know for a fact, but I don't necessarily see a lot of and maybe there is a lot of action or vitality within that space. Maybe there are a number of people producing third-party supplements. I don't know. I've just done some general research, and that's never been a system that really pops up as far as if you're looking at developing something with the idea for sales. It's a difficult system, I think, to maybe sell to.
Yeah. We have a local game club, and we were doing Savage Worlds Pathfinder there for a while, and it was easy to teach people. But I won't lie, what was sad was someone would sit down, play a game, seem like they had fun. They by one combat they had grasped the core concepts of the system, and I remember my wife turning to me going, "Well, do you think they'll be back?" And I'm like, "Nah." And we just couldn't get any traction with our game club, and it's sad. I mean, we had about 2 core tables that loved it, played it, showed up, but we could never. I wanted to grow the club, and that's one of the reasons why we pivoted to Shadow Dark, because it's a lot of people were coming from fifth edition, and it's definitely a more elegant, scaled back, I don't think I'm disparaging it by making those comparisons, advantage, disadvantage, the same six stats that we've known for 50 years, that sort of thing. But
I do think that while I do understand Savage Worlds, I do think that there is some carryover from the original because I believe it was a minis game or a skirmish game or something.
yeah, Deadlands was a skirmish game. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the raises and the every four is a raise. It's
Hmm.
there's a lot of like weird stuff that's weird math that's not necessarily hard, but not intuitive.
Hmm.
You know,
Oh
I,
yeah.
I think some of that could have there should have been some ways mechanically, I think, to dealt with that to make it a more a system that feels more natural.
Yeah.
I don't say natural is not the right word, but
Yeah, it just sort of more of a better fit. The wildest thing was, and I'll give this little aside I tell people about when the game store, people would wander in and go, I heard you have a game night tonight. Yep. And they point to the back room where we're playing and we had our tables and they'd march them in and set them down. And you'd see them reach to grab their dice and they'd pull out that die 20 first. And I'd go, you can put that away. And you would just see this look of just like not use my deck because think of every RPG you've ever played, it usually revolves around the D20, and you don't use the D20 in Savage World, and that would blow people's minds. So yeah, it was kind of funny.
when it uses, but the funny thing is, it uses like almost all the standard dice except that one.
Yeah, I think there's like a horror chart, like if you're objected to just some terrifying mega demon or the biggest dragon and it swoops in, there's like a fear horror chart that uses the die 20. But other than that, but no, all the stats are based off the die. Like if you're sort of weak, puny, not very skilled, die 4 all the way up to like die 12, if you're really um have a vast knowledge in a subject or incredibly dexterous or whatever. But yeah, but yeah.
So as far as mechanically speaking, I mean, what's been a challenge or what was like a big challenge to try and overcome?
Well, that was, yeah, with Savage Worlds, it took definitely more work for certain aspects of some of the classes and different things, when I was trying to do it in Savage Worlds, and some of the aspects I use a lot of charts and tables, which I love those. And it just wasn't. I will say of all the what did you call it, them? I got these systems that are supposed to be universal gaming systems. I've played GURPS. I've played the Hero system. I'm sure I've played some other ones. I will say of all of them, Savage Worlds was the best, but I still say you're better off. Like for Christmas, my wife bought me a thing that it's a screwdriver, it's a hammer, it's a wrench. Yeah, it's not very good at any one of those, but it does it all. You're better off going and get the hammer or the screwdriver or the wrench. And so that was kind of for me coming. My friend said, just do it in an OSR system. I think it's a little better fit that way. You know.
Yeah, it'll play really fast. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do think even the because I still love Champion or the Hero system, but I've
Me
only
too.
played it maybe once or twice in the last 20 years or so.
Uh,
But I do think there are some things, even those universal systems, there's like a few things, genres they do really, really well. But
sure.
even outside of that, they don't they don't do a great job.
Yeah.
And but I think like you're saying, with Kelsey, with Shadowdark, that's a very specific experience. And you're able to tailor that for Shadowdark. And for yours, it's a very specific, tailored experience. And
Mhm.
so I think taking a universal system and kind of adapting it, it still is fine, but you're able to ensure that whatever you're trying that everything about the game system reinforces the play that you are envisioning the setting to produce.
Yeah, that's excellent summation. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy. In fact, changing boats midway through,
Oh
I didn't
yeah.
realize you did that. That was I'm sure a moment of like, I waste all this time.
Well, and that was part of it. I thought, God, I put so much energy into this, but I will say it was like the deeper I got into it, when I decided to pivot, because I really, I'll be honest, I didn't want to disappoint my friend. And this dude is like I tease him. I say, "Do you get out your Savage World books and roll around on them and hug them?" I
Yeah.
mean, this man loves Savage Worlds, but for him to say, "Dude, I've got to know you better and what you're doing," I encourage you to pivot, because I didn't want to let him down. And so when I pivoted to Kelsey's system, to Shadowdark, when I picked that for the specific OSR system, man, it was like a weight came off my shoulders. And not to disparage Savage World, it's a wonderful system,
Right.
but definitely for what I'm doing, this has been easier, for sure. Yeah, and you know,
So the other question is, are you still writing to that friend even though it's not for Savage Worlds?
Oh, he's been one of my chief play testers, and he's actually written some stuff in this, and it's been fun. And he ran it at North Texas. Well, so I was running games, for people. If they're like, "Oh, I couldn't get into your game," well, get in, Chris's game. He's running it as well, and I will say he did a really great job. I played in one of it; really got the theme right and the flavor, and they were fun adventures. And he had a really good reception, because I will say, back when I was working on it last year at North Texas, I had sort of a work in progress, very rough, you know, stuff for Savage Worlds, and he loves Savage Worlds, and he ran those adventures. I remember him coming to me going, this didn't work right, and this was kind of clunky, and some classes were left kind of sitting on their hands while the other ones got all the glory." And so here he is a year later running his adventures again in my setting, using Kelsey's system. And he just came out of those games like, "Oh, everybody loved it and we had a great time, and oh, it was just so fluid," and I'm like, yes. So I mean, I think he was onto something for sure.
Well, yeah, and I think yes, and it does make for much, like I say, a much more efficient system. But I think the other thing is what you didn't lose is you have kind of a what do they call that? You translate from one language to another, then from that language to another language. You've already kind of set up the structure. I think by
Hmm.
at least going through that, even though the mechanics and the rules may be different, you were able to take stuff that was floating around your head and at least create some sort of logical structure to what you're wanting to do. So at least that part
Hmm.
of the work, even though the mechanics and such has changed, I would imagine that a lot of the things that you've done, it's probably was easier to do the conversion rather than have to come up with something new whole cloth.
Whole cloth, yeah. And no, definitely. So already from what I'd built, it was, still a say, it's a shame to have spent that much time on something else, but it wasn't a hard pivot. And I really was able to translate that lore where the classes and the origins, which I'm calling my ancestries, have a unique feel, and they're the differentiation. I actually had to pare back, because once I pivoted to the Shadow Dark for the engine, just ideas for classes and origins like flew out of me, just bam, bam, bam. But I was like, all right, I got to put the brakes on, because you can only put so much stuff in a book. Like as it is, someone said, 10 classes, are you nuts? And I'm like, there were like 12 originally. I had to pare some back. So, but it's just, it really, this with the system, and for me, the world, the setting, it just writes itself practically. But then again, I've been gaming for 40 plus years, and I've been doing post APOC most of that time, so something popped up there. Anyway, but yeah.
So you funded. I think you have another couple weeks or so, maybe a little more than a couple weeks yet for your
Mhm.
Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So what's the long game for this?
Well, so, we've hit funding, and I funded in less than 24 hours. I set a higher benchmark than I normally do, because there's something to be said for going like funded in 30 seconds,
Yeah.
when I did my adventure modules. Um, but I kind of had something to prove. I've talked about this with anybody outside of sort of a tight circle, but I was like, if I can't accomplish this off my own, what acumen or whatever, it's like, so I I set a higher benchmark than we do, and but I was really proud and tickled that we hit that in less than 24 hours. And then within a few days, we had practically doubled that. But now we're at the point, if you've done Kickstarters, we kind of call it, because I'm friends with some other, like Lou, love me some Lou, and Stefan, John
Yeah.
Watson, Eddie. We've all kind of kibitzed and talked. I was talking to Tom Wilson about the stall, and we're kind of in the stall, so it's creeping along, and it just does that. That's why last time Eddie did a Kickstarter, he did a shorter one. He said, I don't want to deal with the stall because you get the surge and you get the little surge at the end. The only reason I'm going this long is because I was a special guest at North Texas. I'm a special guest at a new gaming convention, Texoma Con. And Eddie said, well, you probably want to catch the players because, once they play, like at North Texas, not to brag, but here I'm bragging. Everyone that played in my game, you know, the next thing you know, I'd see that they had went and done the Kickstarter. So me running a game from kind of sold the setting. So I'm hoping to get some of that energy at Texoma. Um, but as far as to answer your question, I'd love to see. I mean, we've already funded. I'm going to get the game in people's hands, and they can. And I, along with the book, you'll get as gratis, like a PDF that I call Hellfire, Highways, and Honky Tonks, and it'll have a selection of adventures that have the theme, so you'll kind of get that flavor from that beyond just the game book. And also, isn't it great to already have a handful of adventures you can unleash on your players, and that comes gratis. Um, but then I've seen with games as time goes by, oh, you got your game out, it did great, and then people just let it kind of die on the vine. And I love this, and I love playing it, and I've got some local players that really love it. And I've ran so many adventures locally and play testing it. The system, I want to, like, every 3 or 4 months. Now we'll see how this happens in practical, but I'd love to have a zine come out where I could have new origins, new classes, new spells, new gizmos for the scrap mage. Um, so like mini adventures and things like that. Because I've already had some of my friends go, hey, I'd love to help, or hey, I've got this cool idea. And I'm like, yeah, man. So I'm going to tap their creativity. And so I want to keep that energy going. And that's the only thing. If people buy the core game and they're producing their own thing, bravo, appreciate you. But if some people are like, I could use a little more, I don't have the time or energy or whatever, I want to try to produce stuff to keep supporting the game. I'm not going to just like, yep, I've got your money. Thanks, chumps. And I'm on my way.
Yeah.
I want to keep, because I love this world. I've been running games in this world, kind of this lore and stuff specifically about the last 10 years. And I keep coming back to it. Players have fun with it. So I want to, so yeah, the long game is I want to keep the ride going, so anyway.
So you are you printing this in as soft cover, or are you going to go for hardcover?
I've got a soft cover, I've got a hard cover, and then I've got like a deluxe hardcover. Yeah. I've already produced a map of the Weird South. And so you'll get the PDF, again, the PDF map gratis. I've seen other people on Kickstarters, they've charged for it, but I'm going to give the PDF of the map gratis. But I'll have to charge for the physical copy, and I've got some of those ready to be made. The map's already done, and I've got an image of it available on the Kickstarter. So yeah, so yeah.
Well, that's exciting. So are you printing in the U.S. or are you printing overseas? How are you?
I want to print in the US. I found I have better turnaround times with my other products I print in the US. I know there
Yes.
could be certain savings to print outside the US, but I'm always been the kind of support a local company kind of guy, and not quite so local, haha, but I mean still, you know, keep that money in the US and help our economy. And also is um I've just had a good experience printing with this particular company. And just I'm the guy, normally I've seen some Kickstarters, like it's like you're like, whoa, it's been a year or something waiting for the product to come out.
Oh yeah.
my yeah, and I mean, and it happens, snafus and things happen, but me and Eddie, normally we if we give a target date, we'll produce, you'll get it by then or earlier. And I'm just anxious to get this in everyone's hands. So that's my
Yeah,
plan
I
is in the
agree.
US.
That has been pretty much, I think everything as far as fulfilling to U.S. customers has, or U.S. backers, has been through U.S. publish or printers. But but I think there's a title that was very expensive to produce, and I'll probably have to look at doing like going overseas to replenish that one, and probably for another colored because it's about 50% savings. But
Wow.
I also enjoy the U.S. printer where I can make a call. I know, the salesperson, I know the production person, I know the person that reviews the proofs, and so
Mhm.
it's nice to be able to actually have. And I visited the facility too, so I
Oh,
toured their
wow.
plant. So
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it was it's nice to know the people, right? I shook their hands, and
Yeah.
so where you're dealing with some dude in Lithuania, it's like
It's like, could you say that again? Could you repeat that?
yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, so that's going to be my adventure this year is trying to
Sure.
navigate that because I did fulfillment for a Kickstarter. I wasn't doing the Kickstarter, but I was involved with the Kickstarter, but
Hmm.
it stretched on. So the books were we reprinted locally, but then they had some add-ons that were printed overseas, and that got delayed like 4 months, and it just
Hmm.
made nobody happy.
Yeah. People. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. That's like I said, we've always tried for a quick turnaround time. Uh, and I won't lie, when you send that last thing out, it's like,
Yeah.
ah, you know. I mean, it's quite an adventure. It's very rewarding. It's a lot of fun. Seeing people that believe in your creativity and want to, spend their hard-earned money to buy stuff that you've created, and that's an amazing feeling, isn't it? Isn't it just great?
Yeah, it is. It is. And it would always feel kind of weird if I ever met somebody. And for the longest time, I would have sort of even though I believe in what I do and what I print and what I send out, there's always something in me that if I met somebody that bought my product, my first reaction would be like, "I'm sorry, it was good."
Hey, I get that kind of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, yeah.
Back when I would never even dreamed of publishing anything, but I kind of had an inkling, and there was one adventure that I kept running at cons that I had a really, really good reaction to, and people really liked it. And at the end of it, I just had a print out some pages stapled together, and one dude was like, "Can I have that?" And I went, "Sure." And he goes, "Would you sign it?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute. You trying to get me? Are you going to try to steal things from, like my signature?" I mean, I couldn't believe that. It's like, would you,
And no,
yeah,
there could only have be a nefarious purpose that anybody would
yeah,
ask for your autograph.
yeah, your mind goes there because you just can't believe that they would want your, autograph. So it's just like, wow, it blew my, you know. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you're at North Texas. So you plan on hitting the a con circuit then for a bit with this, or are you just doing it while the Kickstarter's going? Or
No, no, it's I traveled out of state last year to a game convention, and that game convention was great. Taking nothing away from the game, but the process of getting there and back was such an absolute nightmare that I mean, if this does really well and somebody in Saskatchewan said, "Hey, we love your game. We want you to come be a guest or something," I'd probably reconsider. But for right now, Texas is a big state, and we've got a lot of conventions, and they're adding more. And for right now, I do want to do the con circuit. So I went to Alcon, and oh, the players were so awesome. The people were so cool, and the game seemed to resonate with them. A lot of those people end up doing the Kickstarter. Um, because I passed around like, hey, please put your email on here, and nobody hesitated to add their email. And then I couldn't get to ChupacabraCon, but a few friends were going to go run the game for me there. But one of them, work got in the way, and the other one, God bless him, had a stroke. And so, but I did go to North Texas, and like I said, my friend Chris ran games there, and I even did some off books games with people. Um, and then I'm going to be at Texoma later this month, and then I'm going to be at T Fest. And I went to T Fest last year in Austin, and it was a blast. I had so much fun. Those guys got it right the first time, and I can't wait to. I've already put in games there, and the tables are filling up. And then I'm thinking about going to Brawl Con, which is back down in Houston. So yeah, and typical me, I'm sorry, I kind of ramble, but this is called RPG Ramblings.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but I'm the right man for the job, a bit loquacious. But no, I do want to. I'm not just going to again just like my book's out the door. Thanks for your money, chumps. I mean, I do want to be out there running this at cons because I have a lot of fun with it. I'm not to. It feels awkward to beat the drum and kind of promote your own stuff. I'm always feel kind of awkward, like you're bragging or something. But I mean, the game's been really well received. I've had a lot of fun with it. I have a lot of fun running games. So yeah, no, I do intend to continue to actively promote it and run it at cons. Yeah, yeah.
So initially, it looks like so you have a history of producing adventures for DCC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's your, I
Yes.
guess, what's your, the people that you mentioned as far as Lou and Stefan and
Hmm.
so forth, DCC people. So I guess the
Yeah.
question, what's your like, I guess what's your, I don't want to say relationship, but like, how's your like, what's your how do you engage in with DCC and the system and producing material for it?
That's a phenomenal question. So I've been at North Texas, and there were so few people that would run Gamma World games. And again, I love post APOC, love Gamma World, and so I couldn't get into like those got snatched up because there's so few like right away. And but I had got to the con, and someone goes, "Well, you should consider Jim Wampler's game. He's playtesting Mutant Crawl Classics," and I had no idea what that was. I think I'd heard of Jim Wampler before, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll try it." I sat down. Everyone at the table was so nice and so accommodating and kind of helped me with the rules. And Jim ran a great game. And I tell you, I just fell in love with the system, particularly at the time. And so I said, "Where can I get this?" And we were like right by the Black Blade booth, which is hilarious. Like they pointed like right there, 5 feet away. And after that game, I went and bought the core book, a handful of modules, the funky dice, a game master screen. Like I went all in, and I started playing it and running it and having a lot of fun with it. But I knew most people weren't aware of it. Well, how can I get more people playing it? Well, I found about their road crew, and I started road crewing hard. And I road crewed so much in 1 year that they were doing a thing where they would do a profile on you on their website called Roadworthy. And so I was at they posted a picture of me, a wonderfully unflattering picture of me running a game like I'm with my mouth open or something. Yeah, that goes. Um, and they sent me a questionnaire, and I gave some responses. I think it's out there on the internet somewhere. But anyway, so that was kind of flattering, and I really loved their game and running it. And so I started at that time. Brendan LaSalle was wearing a lot of hats because the company was. This is like, gosh, back in 2015, 2016. So what,
Wow.
10 years ago. And so, but I was communicating with Brendan LaSalle and talking about things or whatever. And at one point on a goof, we were doing Long Con, which we do, our gaming convention in Longview, Texas, every November. I'm that guy who's like, nothing ventured, nothing gained. All they can say is no. I've never met a stranger. And so I just, hey man, while we were talking about something to do with, I think, prize support, which again, Goodman Games has always been good about. Hell, we'll send you a box of stuff, put it in your raffle. Thanks for promoting our game. Really nice. And I just said, "Hey, man, why don't you come to our con?" And he goes, "Well, I have to ask Joe, Joe Goodman." And I thought, he's blowing me off, but he's being polite about it. Next thing you know, it's like, "Yep." He told me I can come to your game convention. We're like, "What?" So, I mean, we've had a really good rapport with them, and we've kind of promoted them. We had for a long time, and our con has a lot of Weird Frontiers games and DCC. And Eddie and John recently did Dungeon Dwelling Creatures, which is a system that uses the DCC engine where you play as monsters.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, yeah. So that's kind of where me and Eddie, we had been invited to be a guest at a con, but we kind of like that imposter syndrome. We're like, well, man, like, yeah, we run a little con and we have a little podcast, the No Class RPG podcast that's got a handful of listeners. We almost felt like, man, we're imposters. We shouldn't be the special guests at this con. So that set the seed for Eddie. He snuck behind my back, didn't tell me, like turkey, and he produced an adventure for Mutant Crawl Classics and got it in self-published it, and it did really well. And so then I thought about, I'd always, as a kid, thought it'd be cool to be a game designer, develop stuff for games. Because my parents, they're old school. They're in their late 80s now, and they're like, what's this Dungeons and Dragons? What's this good for? What are you going to do with this? What are you going to accomplish?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like to thumb my nose at them, like, yeah, I'm a successful third party publisher, folks,
Yeah.
chumps, whatever, spite, but anyway, but so then I made an adventure as well, which was that one I had been running a lot. And that Eddie, Eddie's a good friend, and he said, dude, that adventure's solid gold. That should be that you wanted to lead with. And so that's kind of how we got into this, and yeah. Did that
Yeah,
answer the
it's
question?
yeah. So were your parents able to express their opinion, or is this something that
Well, I mean, when I tell them like, hey, I just did a successful Kickstarter and I made X amount of, which I don't really make any money off of them. By the time you pay the artist and for shipping and whatever, I've walked away with a
okay.
couple of dollars in my pocket. But still, I mean, they've done well, and people, I mean, my last one, 201 people, kicked it. So I was very just so humbled and so proud of that. And when I told them, they're kind of like, meh.
My mom and stepdad, they were big into cards. I mean, huge into cards. But they never understood, you know, especially my mom ever that like my interest in it. I think confounded her, even up to the day she died. So it was kind of fun. Not the day she died, but it's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's kind of a generational thing, I think, sometimes
Oh,
where
sure. This is so alien to their upbringing, like RPGs, the concept. I feel like. But by the way, I wanted to not to change the subject, but I understand as you were writing back with Lou, you talked about that on Facebook, that the discussion y'all had, and I contributed to that. And like I said, say what you will about RPGs, because we talked about this on our podcast one time. Like, they can be a vehicle for good. They're starting to learn, whereas everyone, back in the satanic panic, and I had a taste of that back in the day. But there's good that's come out of it, and like they're using it as a tool for therapy now. And I've seen with like my children are autistic, and RPGs and role playing has been kind of beneficial for them. And I'd made that comment that when I was a kid, I had a tremendously bad stutter, like a Mel Tillis. I don't know if you know who that is, but I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it was bad, and I was painfully shy. I mean, just you going up to the mom, like, go up to the counter and ask for extra ketchup at McDonald's, and I'm like, we just you're mortified. And now, like I said, I've never met a stranger, and I don't generally stutter unless I get really tired or something. And I put that to RPGs because it kind of helped me blossom socially, you know. But anyway, I know it's an aside, but
No,
yeah.
I do think, we're not curing cancer. I mean, there's a lot of things that aren't happening, but I think it's, but I think, again, yeah, what we do is important by producing material and then also playing material.
Oh yeah. And there's a room for everyone at the table, and everyone should be
Yeah.
having fun. Those are some of my, gaming mottos for long as I can remember.
Well, I find that's why I find especially it happened at the table I was running for. It had somebody my age, guy my age, and then I was playing with kids. Well, I say kids, they were like late teens, maybe early 20s,
Yeah.
and we're
But to
like,
us, we say kids,
yeah,
right?
exactly. But I'm like looking, it's like as far as all the lifestyles and areas in life we are and interests and it's like all diverse, yet we're able
Mhm,
to come together every week and just have a time together that's very positive.
mhm, mhm.
It's just I think there's a lot to be said with being able and especially at conventions too. It's like not saying there isn't the rare weirdo that shows up at the table, but for the most part, it's like a variety of people of all different backgrounds,
Yeah.
and we get together and have a great time.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen through the years, and then this is me gaming, like I said, for 40 years. Uh, it was great to everyone. I've gamed for years with women, people of color, people with certain handicaps and stuff, and that's where people made fun of and picked fun at D&D and gaming nerds, all that stuff. But the thing was, we were the most accepting group of people. We didn't turn anybody away, and no one
Yeah.
ever got picked on or teased or made feel less than for whatever was. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's why I get kind of mad when people say, "Well, nowadays, gaming is accepting everyone." No, we accepted every. I can't speak for every gaming table
Yeah,
across the
I
world.
think in general, any group, there's always going to be occasions where there is gatekeeping.
Oh, sure,
Not with every group. I mean, as far as statistically population wise, but I would say, and it's not saying that there aren't groups of awkward boys that were probably less than cool with people with girls. So, but I
sure.
think
Oh,
in
well, yeah.
general, not probably 95% was cool, and there's probably definitely a 5% that was probably a bit of ick. But
Oh yeah. Well, that's what's funny was before there was even the term mansplaining, I can
yeah,
remember way back when running games and it's like the guys are almost trying in their God bless them stumbling over themselves to engender themselves to the girls. They're like, well, let me tell you how to cast fireball and be like, let her do it. She's got this, let me tell you how to use your long sword for maximum damage. It's like, no, no, just she's got this, leave her alone. Yeah, there's always gonna be some of that, but it was just misplaced. Like they
yes,
didn't mean it in a bad way, but they're like, I
yeah.
want to impress her with my extensive knowledge of D&D. It's like, all right, yeah, all right, cool guy.
You
Dial it
know,
back.
it also you bring up the road trip with Lou, yeah, because for those that didn't know, I need to post on the link to the audio. Because we also there's a I don't know if you listen to we also had a discussion about conventions
Oh, cool.
record and yeah, everybody needs it. I think everybody uh usually if Lou would offer the like pay people to be on a 12-hour road trip with him because we rode 12 hours together one direction and then flipped around, ran back the other, and I think we probably talked probably all but maybe 2 hours total that whole time.
Oh yeah, it makes a long trip a lot more bearable. Yeah, because I had to drive to Kansas City from Shreveport, Louisiana, and a buddy of mine, the guy that got me into gaming back in the day, he and I rode that 10-hour trip, and it seemed like it was an hour-long trip, and I thought, man, that was just uncanny. But it's because we talked about gaming and nerd culture nonstop, and that made the time just fly by. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and also Lou's just a quality guy, so
Oh,
it was
absolutely.
pretty amazing.
We think a lot of Lou. We made him a special guest at our con because Lou has just been, and that's kind of why we wanted to form sort of a sort of a group to sort of support and look out for each other for the self-publishing guys, because he's been good about he shares his knowledge gleefully, and is very generous with that knowledge and what he's learned, and hey, this is a way to save a buck here, and you should try promoting your product here. Just lose a quality individual for sure. Absolutely.
He's also hard to pin down. I mean, he is like on a constant move, but so it's kind of nice I actually got him sat down if we could just talk because
Yeah,
normally he is all over the place.
that's about right. I don't know how you do. I have so much admiration, um, because I think he's first of all, I have huge respect for school teachers. So I believe he's a teacher, but
Yes,
then also he's a farmer, and that's one of the
yes.
hardest stressful jobs. If you look at these like stress charts, like so I mean, and then he finds time to publish all this gaming paraphernalia every other week. It's like, here comes another product. I'm like, Lou, you're a machine. How do you do it, man? If I could bottle that energy, I'd conquer the world.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know. He is full of energy. Yeah, he
yeah,
would.
yeah.
Yeah, he would at the con. He'd be come in the room like at maybe 1 or 2 in the morning, and then be up by 7 and do it
Uh-huh.
every single day.
Oh yeah, man. But yeah, he's a whenever they made Lou, they threw away the mold, for sure.
Yeah, I guess trying to think. So the convention, so the North Texas Con was a good convention for you.
Oh,
You got a
absolutely. A
lot of
lot of fun.
games. You have
Mhm.
a lot of convention experience. So I guess what recommendations would you have for people as far as in your position, as far as producing games and as far as producing like a setting for
Mhm.
cons and how to approach utilizing cons to the maximum effect?
Well, sure, and that's one of those things to where some people just have to sample something for themselves. It's just not enough to, you could put all the beautiful flowery words and make it sound exciting and awesome or whatever. But some people that, there's that person that's gotta touch that hot stove
Yeah.
to burn their hand or whatever.
The bird
Uh,
hand teaches best.
yeah, I mean, there you go. But it's one of those things. Well, and kind of circling back, talking about cons, since you asked, I think that segues in. Me and Eddie back in the day would like why we did a lot of road crewing and then also just ran games in general of different systems in the Arclitex area when we were trying to build our con up. There were people that'd be like, "Come to our con," and it'd be like, "Well, I don't know anybody," and da 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 da, and I'm not kind of, God bless. There is a commonality of people kind of being shy or bashful, not everybody, but a lot of people in general, maybe in the gaming world. I don't want to generalize, but once they had met us and gamed with us, they'd be like, "Well, I think I'd be comfortable coming to your con," and so there's something about, and that's what we always tell people is like, um, uh, is that these are your people, and it goes back to something you were saying a while ago. We were talking about to where like, well, I don't know if I have that comfort zone. Like these are your people. They watch the same shows you do and the same movies and read some of the same books, and they play these games. These are your people. They're going to be accepting of you, and they're going to love to have you at the table. This isn't like any other hobby or thing. These are your people. Come on out, and because cons are awesome for like, man, I'd love to play Call of Cthulhu when no one around here is running it. You go to a con, somebody's running Call of Cthulhu. Oh, there's that new system I'd love to try. Play it at a con, and before you buy it, find out that, oh, it's great, or maybe that's not my cup of tea. You can sample that at a con, and that's what cons I think are great for. Um, and so, like I said, some of these people I'd never met, wouldn't know me from Adam, might not would have ever saw my uh, Kickstarter or wherever I might have tried to promote it, but they got in my game probably because they like Shadowdark, and hey, this is a great game, So I'd say a con's a great way to promote and network, because that's how I met Lou, Stefan, John Watson. That's how I met him. Was he came to the very first long con because I had been on some like Google, what were they called back before they got rid of them? Google
Google
Hangouts.
Plus, G Plus.
G plus. It was on a G plus group in Dallas. I'd promoted, hey, we're just down the road in Longview. If you like Goodman Games product, we're going to have quite a bit of that. And that's how he showed up, and a friendship grew out of it. Yeah, and we met some great guys through him. But yeah, cons, it's a great way to network, and not just for gaming. I mean, like I talked about earlier, when we'd go to Living Greyhawk cons in far different states, I would see different play styles and meet other players, and kind of we keep in contact. Friendships grew out of that. Hey, come to this other con. A bunch of us are going to. So in general, not just trying to sell your product or produce content, just in general, it's a great way to network gamers. Anyway, I think cons are great. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The though I do find is, for me, it's like there's three legs. There's kind of like there's the fun aspect,
Hmm.
there's the making money aspect,
Hmm.
and then there's the making connections aspect.
Hmm.
And so it's hard to do all three.
Well, especially when you start getting this gray in your beard.
Yeah.
Like I can remember, I would go all day and eat junk food and
Yeah.
do a midnight madness game and jump up the next morning and do it. And yeah, back in my 30s and 40s, I could pull that off no problem. But I've after last week, when I made sure I took a day off after the con from work to recuperate, and even then
Yeah.
I was like, that first day at work,
We're not
yeah,
luau, so
yeah,
we,
yeah. There's only one Lou.
yeah. The funny thing is, yeah, I talked him into staying, leaving a day earlier, and I paid for the extra hotel, but he was wanting to leave Tuesday night, drive all the way through the night, help
Oh
set
wow.
up, and do all the things he does, and go to bed like at whatever time in the morning.
Oh wow.
Like I can't do
Gosh.
that, Lou. I'm not superhuman like you are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, and I love how people like to have no idea. Like, what, you can't do that?
What's
No,
wrong? What's wrong with you?
no. Get with the program, guy.
Yeah, yeah. Take your vitamins. Do something.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's, but
Well,
yeah.
Well, I think we're hitting the time-space continuum, Matt.
Yeah. Oh.
So we've you got a successful Kickstarter that's just it's going to continue to get backers and people that are
Mhm.
wanting their post-apocalyptic to be Southern fried.
There
Uh,
you go.
that'd be your term, Southern fried apocalypse.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you like your post apoc with a drawl, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you say draw or drawl?
Drawl, with a southern drawl. There you go.
Draw.
There you go.
Okay, so is there anything else you want to leave with before we?
This has been a really
Uh,
good hang. I love the conversation. A lot of good questions. Really appreciate the time, Jeff.
well, I
It's been
appreciate you
fun.
coming on, Matt, and it's fun seeing people doing the things that you're doing. So we're all adding to the space, and it's fun to see new and exciting content being made.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, you take care, and we'll have to have you back on sometime soon.
Thanks.